Faculty and student organizations are speaking up and educating the community amid recent anti-Semitic acts on Ithaca College's campus.
First, there was one student who found a swastika, and it was drawn in condensation in the Baker hallway.
That's Isaac Schneider, a student at Ithaca College and the president of the Student Executive Board at IC Hillel. In February, Isaac found 2 of the 3 swastikas on Ithaca College's campus.
A week later, in a Whalen practice room in a specific space, I found 2 more swastikas pushed in with pinpoints into one of the posters in the room.
In response to these acts, Ithaca College's president LaJern Terry Cornish, campus police, and student organizations spoke out. IC Hillel, the Foundation for Jewish Campus Life, has been a key organization in response to these anti-Semitic acts.
I mean, I'm not surprised, but, still disappointed, and especially in such a targeted space. It's one thing to have them generally somewhere on campus, but to be in a very specific room that I access and am really one of the only people that access definitely feels targeted. So that upset me more than anything else.
These acts of anti-Semitism have occurred on Ithaca College's campus before. In 2019, swastikas were discovered in dorm rooms at the college, and a student reported that a mezuzah, or a prayer scroll, was ripped off of their door.
The college sends out bias and hate crime reports every year. I think, if you're looking at the data, you're going to see a lull, and that lull isn't because things weren't happening, it's because people weren't on campus.
According to the Anti-Defamation League, 2020 was the 3rd largest year for reported acts of anti-Semitism on record, with over 2,000 reported incidents in the United States.
We were still kind of recovering from the shock of the hostage incident at the synagogue in Colleyville, Texas, which really had an impact on Jewish communities all over the country.
In response to the rise in anti-Semitism on campus and around the nation, IC Hillel took action, making safe spaces for student and faculty members.
We mobilized both immediately in gathering spaces for students where they could process right after both swastikas were found.
These safe spaces combating the acts of hate at IC resulted in a campus-wide discussion dedicated to education and conversation.
So the IC Day of Learning Grappling with Anti-Semitism was a day-long program, all to learn more together as a community about anti-Semitism, how it operates, and what we can do.
What started as a single 1-hour learning opportunity by the name of Why Are We Still Talking About Nazis turned into an entire campus-wide event known as the Ithaca College Day of Learning, Grappling with Anti-Semitism.
I actually happened to be on my way to a few Hillel meetings, so I just brought the poster, and we kind of scrapped what we were doing for the night, and we're working through some stuff, but by that Friday, it was Lauren Goldberg, who's the executive director of IC Hillel. She had the decision to kind of do this one-day symposium, so the Friday after that was really when we decided we were going to start reaching out to people, and it was a pretty quick turnaround time. We did it about 2.5 weeks later, but it was the Friday after.
Hillel at Ithaca College, the Center for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Social Change, and the college's senior leadership collaborated to hold the Day of Learning, which took place from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on February 28th in Emerson Suites.
In terms of actual planning, it was our team of student interns and student board members that were really doing all the outreach, all of the media, all of the nitty-gritty logistics of getting people here, so I oversaw all of that. And then on the actual day itself, we had been setting up in Emerson a few days prior. I was there setting up in the morning. I introduced President LaJern Cornish and spoke a little bit right at the beginning of the day at the 10 o'clock hour. And then just like the rest of our student board members and interns, everyone was there all day to do the transitional times, meet with the guests, any sort of hospitality needs, and kind of just field questions.
The Day of Learning featured 6 lessons surrounding anti-Semitism. During the day, students worked to define anti-Semitism and discussed how to identify, respond to, and properly educate others in the face of it, and deconstructed the American lens of race.
And all I can hope is that people respond in an informed way based on the Day of Learning, that the response pre-day of learning will be different than if something happens in the future, because we did have great attendance. We had over 300 students sign in, and that was just the people who signed in, not including faculty, staff, and the community.
Keynote speakers discussed their own experiences with anti-Semitism around the world. Students were even able to explore the effects of Middle Eastern geopolitics on anti-Semitism.
I'm the grandchild of Holocaust survivors. Not the great-grandchild, not some ancient generations. My grandparents were in Auschwitz and in the torture camp of Mauthausen. So it's not a far removed thing, and it's modern history, and that's why you see the posters surrounding this campus the past week and a half, because it still affects our students directly on this campus.
But the campus-wide educational opportunities didn't end with the Day of Learning. The same week, another event was held by the name of Jewish Space Lasers and Other Thoughts on Anti-Semitism with Dr. Jessica Cooperman in Kling Lounge. This event was an academic deep dive on the history of anti-Semitism, where it originated, and where it is now. In their teachings, IC Hillel has emphasized that while this may seem like an isolated or even innocent event to some, it's anything but.
For students who had a personal family tie to the Holocaust, this hit a nerve directly that was already very raw because of the rise of anti-Semitism both nationally and internationally, and because unfortunately in our contemporary world we are witnessing anti-Semitism on both micro interpersonal scales rising, as well as systemic anti-Semitism that is alarming.
I was disheartened but also unsurprised that in the few Shabbat and other events that IC Hillel was hosting in the weeks prior or after these events, we're a little low on attendance. And this is kind of what I was expecting. You know, I could sense some fear and hesitation from Jewish students in the Jewish community.
But for as long as need be, Hillel will continue to combat these acts of anti-Semitism and work towards a safe environment for Jewish students on campus through education and awareness. They have also worked to encourage students to utilize systems on campus, like the Bias Report Forum, to bring to light any future incidents.
Students might feel vulnerable about speaking up, and that's one of the things that's important about the Bias Reporting Forum is it can be done anonymously.
With each opportunity, Hillel has and continues to provide a clearer understanding for Jewish and non-Jewish students alike about the history and contemporary manifestations of anti-Semitism and about what they can do as a community to reject it. For ICTV Reports, I'm Jacob Makofske.